Bissell, and I am the chair and the senior safeguarding consultant at Plan to Protect. And we just welcome you again to another episode of Plan to Protect, our podcast. Today we have a special treat, and that is our guest, Jim Smith. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Jim in a few minutes. But today's focus for our podcast is aging Indigenous people. Jim, I met almost, I think, Jim, it was probably about 10, 12 years ago. You came and visited me in our offices, and you and your wife and your son, and we just created a special friendship that day. You brought us beautiful gifts from the Indigenous community that I still cherish. And Jim and I have had numerous conversations over the years because he is really passionate and really committed to wanting to create safe communities among Indigenous people. So welcome, Jim. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
So, Jim, before we get too far into our topic about elder abuse among Indigenous people, I'd like you to tell us just a little bit about your background, your heritage, and why are you so involved with the Indigenous people yourself?
I come from, as I said, I come from the reserve right off of the Montreal, and my grandmother left it to marry a regular man, and he was a good guy, but it's just that for Indigenous people, it was kind of a strain, and we would go out even when I was around 5. He had horses, and we used to go out, and the horses that we had they were really good horses, and the one horse would bow down to the ground so I could get on his back, and then he would stand up. And him and I really got along good. We was the best of buddies on the farm. There's one little story that, if it's okay, if you don't mind, I'll tell you the story. When I was about 9 years of age, I heard this awful sound a little distance away. So I never thought anything about it, but it kept getting louder and louder. And so I thought, well, I want to see what it is. So I went out, and this animal had, when it was stepping along, it stepped in a hole, and a big rock filled in behind it, and it was the animal was a wolf, and I didn't know what to do. My grandfather was working on the fields, and I didn't want to bother him, so I started to go close to the wolf, and he started baring his teeth and growling, and I got down on my hands and knees, and I crawled up to him, and I removed the stone, and he didn't hurt me. He didn't do nothing. He just made sure that I didn't hurt him. And I took the stone out. The little guy, he's bigger than I was. He was fine. His paw was hurting him, so he took off back to where he was from. About a month later, I heard the herd of wolves yelling and screaming, and I thought, my goodness, what has he done again? So I went there, and they, all the wolves stood around me. They never touched me. They never hurt me. And they walked me out to the pathway. And I thought that that was one of the best little things that I had ever had done. Um, him and his group, they didn't bother me. They didn't hurt me. They didn't do nothing. And I thought, wolves are not that bad. But later on in life, you learn that they're not the best neither. But I thought of telling you that story because I had to act as if I was almost like one of them.
Mm.
And when I was on my hands and knees, he was baring his teeth and growling, but he never hurt me. He never did anything. And I'm very glad and pleased over. But I learned to deal with a lot of the animals by what had happened with the wolf.
I think you've told me stories also, Jim, if I'm correct, about how much your mother honored animals. Um, and even when she would cook animals.
Yes, my mother. Before, my dad was a little bit different. He didn't really go for it, but when she would be taking the flesh off or whatever she was doing, that way we always had a prayer time for it because the animal was our livelihood, and we was able to survive. And she loved the animals. She loved the way that they were. They were very friendly to us. They didn't stay around us, but they were very nice and easy. When she did the cooking, before we could sit down to eat, we always had to give the Creator, which is God, um, the thanksgiving for the animal that He gave us at that particular time. And I learned a lot of history from my grandfather, from the elders of the tribe and everything. They taught us a lot of things, and I really enjoyed it. And a lot of it today, I pass on as an elder. I pass on to the younger generation.
Well, let's talk about this for a minute. So, your mother was Indigenous, your father was mainstream, but you have stayed very involved in your life with Indigenous people. Tell
Yeah,
us a little bit about your career, your involvement with Indigenous people.
basically, when we moved from the Iroquois area to Brantford, my dad told me because of the way things were that I could never tell anybody that I was Indigenous because of the fact that Six Nations is up there, but they did not, the company did not hire any Indigenous people. So I did what I was told. I didn't, put it on a platter or anything like that. But I always looked at the way my grandmother, the way my mother, the way the grandfather and stuff like that, the way that they taught us. And you don't go out and you don't wreck anything. You do what the Creator teaches you to do. And as an elder, I pass that on now to our youth that in the tribe that we teach them things so as if something should happen and that they decide that they want to branch out on their own, they're welcome to do it, but they still are part of the heritage.
Oh, that's beautiful. So, Jim, you and I share a real passion for the safeguarding and protection of vulnerable people. How did you come about this? Like, why is this something very important to you and your wife and your family?
A lot of that was the indigenous people on not so much on the reserves, but the indigenous people. Uh, a lot of them would get into drinking alcohol and stuff like that. And all I seen was that it was damaging people. It wasn't helping them. It wasn't doing different things. So I tried to teach over the years. I tried to teach the younger generation to stay away from stuff like that. Do not get involved with it. The creator never designed us to be that way. And now some of them did, stayed along with us. Others didn't. They went their own way. And but I felt sorry for them. We would have prayer time with the Creator, and that to bring them back one day. That instead of leaving them out there and they become alcoholics or whatever, to bring them back. And I vowed when I was about 14 years of age, I vowed that I would never, ever, ever get involved with drugs, alcohol, or anything. And my mother pounded that into me as a child. Don't do anything like that. That is bad for your health. It's bad for you generally. And the Creator does not like that. And she taught me a lot about the Creator and the way that the Creator uh, worked and how he did different things. And we would sit around the table at night because there was no televisions or anything back then. We would sit around there and we would talk and talk and talk about how the Creator loves us. And I just found that, as Green and I got married and we had children, I taught them and she taught them the same thing.
So, Jim, I often talk about how people that have experienced trauma in their life find coping mechanisms, and some of those coping mechanisms can be self-injury, they can be substance abuse, and there's a real prevalence of suicide, substance abuse within the First Nations and within Indigenous people. And those are coping mechanisms. You're absolutely right. They're unhealthy coping mechanisms, but they're often a way to deal with the pain and suffering you've experienced. And I think Indigenous people, we know this, have experienced so much trauma, losing their land, the residential schools, now missing women and girls, all that causes trauma, and it's community trauma. It's not just individual
Yes.
complex trauma in your own life, but it's a whole nation of people that have experienced trauma and pain and suffering. And what ends up happening is people find unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with it. And that's really what we're talking about today, is this whole idea of abuse within Indigenous communities, but elder abuse, the elderly people experiencing abuse, and some of that is probably just a pain and suffering from what they've experienced in their lifetime.
Yes, definitely.
From an inside perspective, how prevalent is abuse within Indigenous communities?
The community itself, if we stick just together, is fine. The problem is with the mainstream is in order to do sometimes what you want to do, like working outside the land and stuff like that, there would be a lot of things go wrong. Like as an example, my sister, um, and it's a sad story, but it's a true story. She, being Indigenous, she went through nursing school. She learned to be a nurse and everything else, and she worked in the hospitals and that, but she never told them that she was Indigenous because they refused to accept Indigenous people on their staffs. So basically, as she got older, she got a lot worse, with her legs and stuff like that. Her son and I sat down one day with her, and we said, well, it's time for her to go into a nursing home where she could, she knew what they were doing, but also she had the ability to it. When we went and checked with the government said she could not go into like a home or anything like that. They refused her, and that because she was Indigenous, they refused her. They told us that she had to be out on the street for at least 1 month before they would even recognize the fact of putting her in a nursing home. When she did get into a nursing home, we spent a lot of time praying over her and things like that. But wherever she was in the home, they refused to allow her to do certain things, to talk to certain people, to do anything. And I vowed at that time with the Creator that I would never, ever, ever allow that again. When she died, which was a very short time after going to the nursing home, they refused to feed her. And because they refused to feed her, she lost a lot of weight, and that's what killed her. And there was nothing that the family could do because we had no real proof of it. So in our church, there's a gentleman, or was a gentleman, he's passed away now. But Cliff and I, what we would do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we would go out to the nursing homes. And Cliff was a good singer. I'm not. And I played the guitar, and we used to go out different times, new ones coming in. They were crying and that because they never wanted to be in the nursing home. And Cliff would sit down with them, and in a matter of a few minutes, he had them laughing and joking and that. And we really enjoyed that. We did that for, I think it was 9 years we did it for. And I really enjoyed it. I really appreciated the opportunity that Cliff gave to me to go in with him into the nursing homes, from Kingston all the way north.
Many of the things that you're talking about sound so similar to the pain and suffering that happened within residential schools,
Yeah.
not allowing you to talk to certain people, to talk in specific ways, not to be involved in things, being forced to do something or not allowed to do something, which I'm sure brings back very many painful memories. Um, for people because there's still people today that are living that experienced the suffering of being in a residential school, and certainly family members. And I think that there's so much we can learn from this, both the Indigenous individuals and people and mainstream people, to know how to care for people in nursing homes. So thank you so much for sharing that story. Thank you so much for what you and Cliff did. I think that we need to honor our elders and bring joy to people, whether they are Indigenous or mainstream, that we show honor to our seniors and those that are older, that have so much to teach us. So thank you for that. I I hear that there is a lot of prevalence of domestic violence within Indigenous communities. Am I accurate in that comment? Is this something you hear about? And why do you think there is a prevalence of domestic violence and abuse to women and girls?
Yes, definitely. I agree with what you're saying. We've been out, had sessions with the women, the missing women, and that basically there's really not much that can be done. We've contacted the RCMPs, and the RCMPs said that they would look into it, but you find out over time it goes in one ear and out the other. And the Indigenous seems to be something that the mainstream people go after. And why, nobody really knows why. But what we try to do is we try to go into the uh, classrooms, into the schools, and teach the girls what not to do. And the most board of educations are very good that way. They do allow it, but usually with missing women, it used to be just women and girls. Now that the system has changed, uh, little girls, little boys are being taken away. And it's something that we've never been able to conquer, um, because it's just something that uh, the parents can't give them what they want as far as in good clothing and different things like that, because they don't have the money. The Indigenous people don't have the money. Um, they're always led to the slaughter in many different ways, and that a number of years back, Drain started something that, well, at first I didn't know what it was, uh, but she called it the 50-50. And what we would do is we would take 50% of our meals, and we would go around to the various Indigenous families where we're not like they weren't starving or anything, but they weren't getting the food that they needed. And we always went in there, and we still do that for years, but we still do it not as much now as because of our age and that. But Green still makes the 50/50 meals to help them out. So we're kind of confined to this little area here. But at the same time, we're still doing what we believe that Creator has taught us to do.
You have a very far reach, Jim, even though you are in a small area in Ontario. I know your reach is national, and the impact of your work is now not only um, national, but also you and your son are also involved internationally in Iraq and other countries. Jim, what are some of the triggers that bring back painful memories for Indigenous people? Like, what are the things that even the mainstream can do to not cause further trauma and harm and suffering to Indigenous people? Can you, especially seniors and the elderly, because we really don't want to contribute to further pain. So, are there things that we can learn from you not to cause further pain and suffering?
The two things that basically are very, very, very bad is alcohol and drugs. It creates a lot of the males, they go out and they get into the drinking and stuff like that. They come home. The woman is, she stayed up with the children and stuff like that. And it creates fights. It creates beating the mothers of their children. And we have tried earnestly to go in and teach the men the proper way to do things, but most of them don't want to be a part of it. Most of them believe that they are the kings now, and that the women are the ones that clean the floors and sweep the things and do things like that. And it's created a whole different outlook on Indigenous people. Most of the Indigenous people that I work with and try to help is the ones where there is fights breaking out in the homes, but that we try to work with both male and female to, and Drain really helps in that area too. She helps in taking the women aside. She has right now Women's Circle, and it had a lot of that was brought in by the mainstream population with the alcohol and the drugs and different things like that. And it's something that we've tried and tried and tried to eliminate, but you can only do so much.
Well, thank you for what both you and Doreen are doing to care for the community. And education is really the key. I think the more we can educate people on respect and honoring each other and appropriate ways to interact with each other, I think you're right. So if we can help contribute to healthier lifestyles, that would certainly go a long way in combating abuse. I also think that there's a real important role that we can have both mainstream and within Indigenous communities to have good counselors, therapists that can walk alongside those that are suffering.
Yes.
Is there a willingness on the part of Indigenous people to go to counselors, Jim?
Not too much, because in a lot of cases, if you want to talk with somebody, what we do is we talk, you've got sections of what is happening in different homes. So we try to learn from them. And then we go to the home and try teaching them. And the physicians that are helping, they do a fantastic job with us. They bend over backwards just to, be able to do something to stop the nonsense and the stupidity that's going on. It's like with what happened with the residential schools. A lot of the kids were buried in various areas. A lot of the indigenous people want to go and collect the bodies or collect the bones of their families. And the federal government is not so much in helping. They do not think it was an area that had very little to do with the government. So they don't look at that it's up to us to, try to get them involved. And we try not to get them involved. What we try to do is get them to help with financial, because it costs money to keep, to be able to travel the highways and the roads and that. But what we have to do is the federal government, they're not into things like this. I do believe that it's something that is really needed, but it's something that no one seems to want to touch.
I can only imagine if that was one of my family members that was buried in an unmarked grave at a residential school, I would absolutely want to bring my loved one home and be able to find a resting place that we could honor them and give them a tombstone and honor them for what they experienced. And I would not want one of my loved ones buried at the residential school where they suffered such horrific abuse.
Yes.
Jim, is there a willingness for from the Indigenous people, for mainstream people to come in and bring help and
Yes.
walk alongside of them? You think that there is a welcome
Yes.
and openness to that?
Yes, there definitely is, because you can see it. It's, the people want to help. But as I say, there is a cost involved. And the government, the federal government said, well, if you want finances, then go find it. It's not our job. And we've had over the years, we've had various struggles with the different people that's been in the power and things like that. And it's not like we're begging them or anything. It's just the fact that if they would allow us to, like with food and stuff like that, rather than wasting your money out on drugs or on alcohol or whatever, give us something that we can help the Indigenous people with. And the Indigenous people are very well into it.
I think that there's so much we can take even from what you're suggesting and working with the Indigenous communities in
Yes.
Canada and just coming alongside. I know that there were so many denominations and parties that had been actively involved in causing harm within residential schools. And during the whole Truth and Reconciliation, so many of these denominations quickly came forward with apology. And I think the apology and the deeply felt apologies are needed, but they can't end with just saying we're sorry. We need to put our words to feet and come alongside Indigenous communities, help address the trauma and pain and suffering that they've experienced, help combat and replace some of these unhealthy coping mechanisms with healthy coping mechanisms, continue to provide education and opportunities for care and counseling to those that are suffering, and not be silent and just accept it as status quo, the harm that happens within Indigenous communities, even, self-harm or injury, substance abuse, not just accept that as and stereotype, but actually help to combat it and address it. And I'm so grateful for what you and Doreen are doing and your family are doing, both in Canada and around the world. Jim, thank you so much for that. Do you have any final, we're coming to the close of our podcast. Do you have any final words to our audience as to how we can best support your communities?
We, as a whole, believe that we're welcome anybody that wants to help out, because the need is so great just across Canada. The need is so great, and we accept people. It doesn't matter who they are, what color they are, or whatever. We are all one. I am one person, but that one person may have 10 different people inside. If people are, are really want to get involved and help, I think it's an excellent way, because
Well,
there are needs no matter where you go.
that is so true. And I think that there are others that are suffering so much more than we are, that there's so many little things we can do. Provide. I love the idea of what Doreen is doing with the 50-50 meals and just educating, and just even our terminology and the words we use. I know you and your son have been so helpful to me in learning the best way to word things and how to communicate things. And you've even reminded me today of just the role of the creator and the respect that Indigenous people have for both the creation, animals. You started off with your story about the wolf, brave on you. But that is influence that you have gleaned from your mother and from the community that you grew up in. And I think we should take on the posture of being learners, and even shifting some of our terminology to really show honor and respect. And I love all the references you've made in our podcast today about the creator, speaking of such respect and recognizing that we are the creation and that we can learn so much from the creator. Thank you, Jim, so much. I really appreciate you. I learned a lot from you, Jim.
You're welcome, because, as I say, we need all the help that we can get, coast to coast.
Thank you. I know that you and your family have just recently started a charity in Canada. Many give away blankets of hope, and it's a new charity that's been registered in Canada. And I am so grateful for the blanket that you gave to me. And it is a reminder often to think about you and pray for you and your family. and the good work that you're doing across Canada and around the world. So just a shout out to Jim and his family for starting this charity. And I encourage you I encourage our audience of listeners to look into this wonderful charity and help contribute to meeting the needs of Indigenous people in Canada. Jim, thank you so much for participating today. Doreen, we didn't see you, but we heard you in the background, and we just thank you for the good work you're doing too.
Thank you.
God bless you. God bless your family.
God bless your family too.
Thank you, Jim. Bye, everyone.